right. Good evening, everybody. I am coming to you from an unused corner of my house tonight, where I have just set up my brand new 3D printer that is whirring away behind me. I've spent the last basically 24 hours trying to set this thing up. Those of you who have been over on the Discord have known that I have been just having a bitch of a time getting this thing running. But it is running now, and I am doing a first print. Actually, what I have going right now is I've started printing a Baroque recorder. I did a couple of miniature test runs. Uh, this was going to be the beginnings of who's in what's it? A support for the machine, but I realized I had some. Dang it! Quiet again. Okay, give me a second. I'll adjust the volume. Okay, hopefully that should be better. Oh yeah, that's a lot better coming through the monitors. Let me know if the volume is any better. But yeah, so I've got the 3D printer going right now, and I thought we'd talk some about the possibilities and potential of writing or of working with 3D printed instruments. So yeah, the question is, how long does it take to print? Right now, it is printing the foot joint, and the foot joint will take a little over 7 hours to print. And so, as for the whole instrument, probably, I would say better part of 24 hours to print the whole Baroque recorder. One thing that I'll be doing with it, and I'm doing it with this, and I will probably end up doing several prints of this one, is I am scaling it up to Baroque pitch. So I'm making it at 105 point whatever percent bigger to play at A415. If the first test goes well, I'll have a 415 Baroque recorder. Increase my speeds. I don't want to increase speeds yet, Jared. I want to see kind of how it works. How loud is the printer? Not particularly loud. I'll be able to run the whole thing overnight, and it is in the furthest corner of my house from where my bed is, so I don't think I'll be able to hear it. Yeah, Jared, I will experiment with some of the travel speeds, but you know, there is a huge learning curve to 3D printers. So I am going to have to do a lot of that learning here. But we'll just kind of see how it goes. In fact, I kind of want to see how it's going. Oh, it's looking really good. Yeah, that's gonna work quite well, I think. But anyway, yeah. So I've been kind of scouring the intertubes for what some people have done with 3D printing on instruments, and I think we all know Richard Bobo's efforts with it. He is been doing a lot with 3D printing, and I've been consulting with him some, and yeah, so we'll just kind of see how does the 3D printer actually work. Okay, that's a fair enough question. So I'm going to get my fat self out of the way and take the chair out of the way. And it's running right now. So Over here, this is a control panel, and I can control everything from this. Supports here. This is a little bit bigger one, so this is an Ender 5 that I'm working with here. It's a fairly basic model. It's got a print height of 300 millimeters this way, so right at 1 foot. 225 this way by 225 this way. So anything within those dimensions, I should be able to print. That has an X, Y, and a Z axis. You can see this is the printer head right here. It's going back and forth along the X and the Y axis, and then the bed here is what goes up and down on the Z axis. Over here is a spool of the material. This is just a cheap PLA material. It's the standard plastic you start with. But this nozzle right here is heated up to 200 degrees Celsius. And the bed here this is 60 degrees Celsius. Everything with 3D printing is all done in metric. It does not allow for standard imperial units, which is nice. You're not going to get any mix-up of units, so it's all metric. And what it's printing right now is just the foot joint of the recorder, and I've got this set on a 30% infill. That means that only 30% is going to be filled. The rest of it will be hollow, which means it's going to be very, very light. And I can set that anything from 10% all the way up to 100%. I'm also printing this recorder with support structures in it, so that as it is built up, it will be able to be supported. And that was one of the problems I found with some of the early things that I was trying to print is cylinders will print fine because it just supports itself, but if there's any kind of weird shape, you'll need some kind of support. So I'm printing this with supports. It probably doesn't need it, but I'm doing it just in case. Okay. When you 3D print wind instruments, how do you calculate the bore bell dimensions like the clarinet trombone family? You calculate them exactly like you would if you're making it in a traditional manner. When I was calculating everything for the great bassoon, which will end up being mostly 3D printed, a lot of what I did is just it's hardcore math, and you're going to have some level of computer modeling skills. And so I'm going to have to actually develop those computer modeling skills, and that will be fairly difficult. We'll see how that goes. That's going to be a long journey, but who knows? One way I found for something like bells, a great way to do it is all you need to do is really kind of figure out the curve of one cutout of it. And then what you can do is you can rotate that around a central axis. And by rotating it around a central axis, you have the shape of the bell. And you could be able to print from that. And that would work quite well. And that's something I will probably be doing. Though, I mean, a lot of the shapes for when I end up designing the Great Bassoon will be fairly easy to do. The hardest thing will be the boot joint and the upper bend in the top of the wing joint, because I do want to have that as a sweeping curve. Boxing Day is not a thing in the U.S. We kind of look at it and say, Boxing Day? What the hell is Boxing Day? What do you think of using some 3D printed parts and some parts made from the standard materials? I got a wooden mouthpiece for my 3D printed serpent. Oh, well, I mean, yeah, if you're going to use... I don't think a 3D printed mouthpiece is ever going to be great. Maybe if you did the mouthpiece on 100% fill, that could work instead of the 30% fill. What is it? Boxing Day was when the English elite decided to give presents to their servants. They gave them boxes. As far as I know, that's what it is. It is definitely not a thing here in the U.S. But so anyway, yeah. So what I've done with this particular file is I've just increased it in size. Yes, Richard is printing quite a bit of the Subcontra bassoon. He's actually already printed those parts, so they're done. And he's printed them twice. The first one he did was in PLA, which is what this is printing in right now. And then the second run was in ABS plastic. I have one of the PLA joints, and for its size, it is incredibly light because it's done on this same 30% infill. But according to him, the ABS parts are even lighter because ABS is a less dense material. Luckily, the ABS is a lot stronger. How much does fill material cost? That is a good question. I haven't priced a lot of it. Basically, you just want to go to Amazon and look up 3D printer filament. And I'm sure you can get a whole range of stuff. So, yeah. But yeah, I'll definitely be looking into this. I've got several rolls of it. Yes, so the Subcontra bassoon with the 3D printed parts will be considerably lighter than you would expect it to be. I mean, if everything was done 3D printed, I would expect it to be maybe 30 pounds. That's it. The heavy stuff will be stuff like the supports, the brackets. But Richard is going to be doing a live stream on that in 2 days from now. I think he announced that today. So that'll be a better place to ask him all that stuff. What color? Right now, I've got yellow in there. I forgot I had yellow in there when I started printing the recorder. Do I own any 3D printed instruments? Not yet. The only thing I've got is the Newton joint from the Subcontra bassoon. But that's not a full instrument. That's just one joint and one tone hole. Right now, this is printing a recorder. So within a few days, I should have a recorder ready to go. And this I'm trying to do at Baroque pitch. So that will be interesting. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well at Baroque pitch, the next step will be I'll print the same thing, but I will print it instead of in F in G. So I'll have essentially an E recorder, an F recorder, and a G recorder for alto, which will be quite nice to have. Let's check. So I started the printing of it just a couple minutes before the stream started. And it's already probably about half a centimeter high. So that gives you some idea. This is an alto. Do you have any ideas for making a nicer looking finish for 3D printed instruments? Sandpaper. I would suggest printing with a thicker wool, and then sand it down. Start with a coarse grain and then work up to really fine, like 2200 grit or something along those lines. And I think you would get something really nice and smooth. The recorder, this is PLA plastic that I'm using. I'm not going to do any ABS printing until summer. I can move this out into the garage when it's super hot here in Texas, because ABS has to be done with heat. So when can we expect a 3D printed Heckle phone? Well, 3D printed contrabasers. So yeah, one instrument at a time, design wise. Great bassoon will come first. Bassoon keywork is easier to deal with than either heckelphone or sarrusophone keywork. Um, I heard you mention using calculus in instrument making. Is calculus necessary to make a cylindrical bore? Do I plan on printing a 3D contrabass oboe? So far, I haven't used any actual calculus yet in the designs. However, it is coming because I know for a fact that I'm going to have to with the bend design that I'm going to have to use. Calculus is really about the studying curves. So if there is a curve in anything, that's when you're going to start needing calculus. If it's just straight angles, that's simple trigonometry. So with the 3D printing a contrabass oboe, yes, I would love to do it. That's going to be a big design project. It is something that I would like to eventually do. I'm not sure how to approach it first, though. Okay, so a lot of people bringing up 3D printed stupid stuff. Um, so there are some limits. Uh, Woodwind instruments in particular are very well suited for 3D printing because the body of the instrument does not vibrate. At least it shouldn't vibrate. Um, because they're just simple tubes or conical tubes, cylindrical tubes, however. And so woodwind instruments make a really ideal um, instrument to experiment with the additive technology here. Um, and that's why I want to get into it is, because I want more woodwinds. Um, Brass instruments can work. The harder thing with brass instruments is, of course, going to be the moving parts. You can't 3D print valves. The valves have to really be done in metal. Are 3D printers precise enough to print reeds? No. There have been some. The commercial 3D printers are not precise enough to print reeds. There may. Leger's technology is proprietary, but they are probably using some kind of proprietary technique, that's some kind of additive technology there. What's the tone quality of 3D printed instruments? The tone quality is going to depend on a lot of things. It's going to depend on the interior of the bore. So if you can get the bore to where it's super smooth, it should not sound any different than a regular instrument. So you're going to need um, uh, to use a lot of sandpaper. But, and the other thing is you have to make sure it's sealed, so you're going to have to put some kind of sealant on it. Keywork is a big challenge. The body of most instruments can be printed, but keywork needs to be, and that's going to be one of those things. One reason I'm doing the recorder first is there's no keywork on it. Keywork will be, has to be done the old-fashioned way out of metal. I don't like plastic keys. How good are 3D printed keys? Well, no, you'd want keys out of metal. Any key made of plastic will have problems. Yeah, and I had one of the Guo flutes, and I was with repair techs that we don't know how to replace the pads on the Guo G treble because they're glued in, but so yeah, no 3D printers. The commercial 3D printers, Ratchet, do not print metal. Plastic. plastic keys are not great. Is it possible to 3D print the non-existent E-flat euphonium that would be a nice addition to the family? No. That is not something that I think is going to be 3D printed. What you could do with the 3D printing, though, is you could make the mandrels that you would need to form the bell or the bends. And so the mandrels are the interior shapes. I'm hearing something weird. Let me check. It's fine. It's looking good. All right. I like that. So yeah, you could theoretically 3D print instrument mandrels, and that would be one way to do it. But you would still need to do the body out of the brass, and I just don't think plastic brass instruments is a real step forward. You really need that. The brass on the brass instruments does vibrate, and the same with string instruments. The wood on the strings is an integral part of the vibration of the instrument. I don't think you're ever going to get good quality sound out of a 3D printed string instrument. Could you steal a valve section from another brass instrument and 3D print the rest of it? I think theoretically a 3D printed bell would be fine. 3D printed bows would probably be fine. But once you get to the slides, in the valve sections, I don't think that's going to work. And then you run into the issue of adhesive. Brass is glued together by soldering, whereas plastic is glued together by particular kinds of glue. Typically, with the ABS, I'll probably use cyanoacrylate. With PLA cyanoacrylate. The ABS you use acetone. But yeah, so some other things that I actually have files for. Somebody has a 3D printed Baroque oboe that I have the file for, that it will be interesting to try and do. So if that works, I'd have a 3D printed Baroque oboe. The file for it is A440, but if this works, I can just scale it up to 415, and all said and done, there it should be perfect. And there's a few other things to do, but one of the next steps, though, is I'm really going to have to start learning some of the modeling stuff. And I'm not exactly sure what's the best route to do that with what program to use. 3D printed percussion instruments. Aster, I think the 3D printed Baroque oboe would be on Thingiverse. I just do a search for 3D Baroque oboe. So thoughts on 3D printed percussion. I think for something like drum shells, it would be fine, but you don't want the drum head. This stuff does not vibrate. It shouldn't vibrate anyway. Sorry, I'm getting so many messages right now. I'm just got to check, make sure none of them are urgent. Oh, yeah. Okay, so yeah. Oh, and of course with the Baroque and period instruments, of course there is the serpent, and I do plan on 3D printing the serpent. That's going to, of course, be that is a long print. To print the 3D serpent is 200 hours of print time, and I'm going to want to make sure that I've got the right material to do that. I want to do it all in one color, and I'd like to do it, black, so it looks like a serpent. Though I'll probably do the bocal in a different color. Maybe use this yellow, or actually I might find you can get um, a gold, which would I think work quite well. Right. Any instrument where the body of the instrument is vibrating is not a good candidate for 3D printing. Which is why woodwinds are really probably the best solution. Um, in practice, the body of a woodwind instrument should not be vibrating. No, Richard does not have all of that done. Last I saw, Richard has been working on the support structure. So which he has been welding together. Jolly, yeah. Well, the all serpents sound like leaf blowers. That's kind of the the serpent itself. Uh, yeah, metallic filaments are junk. Yeah, I don't want to experiment with metallic filaments. I may experiment with some of the wood fill stuff. That will be interesting. Alessandro, I'm not Richard. You need to ask Richard. He'll be having his stream 2 nights from now, 48 hours from now. He'll be doing his stream. So ask him then. I talk to him most daily, but I know better than to ask him, when's it going to be finished every day? So, yeah. So yeah, this is going to be very interesting, and there's a lot of things that I'll be 3D printing, and I will probably end up selling a bunch of stuff that I 3D print off of here. Might even be worthwhile if this really takes off to invest in the second one and to have 2 going at once. So get the 3D printed Baroque recorder, sell that for however much. Yeah, Ratchet, you're right. I don't think there's many percussion instruments that could be 3D printed, though I think you could print individual parts. I think if say you need to print a support structure for a marimba bar. Is it possible to 3D print well with wood? Yes, there is a wood fill. It's mostly wood mixed with PLA plastic that does work. I don't have any of that material, but I will check some of it out. When you do use it, it will need to be sealed. Yeah. I don't think I'd print the lugs. Those are metal. Tension rods, maybe. It just is going to depend on how sturdy they are. Maybe if you printed at 100% fill, it would work. But yeah. But one of the great things about using this material is that it is so much lighter. If I were to take a Fox Renard Model 41 bassoon, that's the standard plastic bassoon, that's actually heavier than their wooden instruments. But if it were 3D printed, it would be lighter than the wooden instruments by quite a big margin. So with this kind of technology, you could theoretically see instruments become much lighter for students to use, which would be a big advantage for something like a bassoon, where the weight is really pretty considerable. So yeah, I'm going to be really excited to figure out what this stuff can do. Um, you know, how's it going to work? Can I actually get some viable instruments out of it? Who knows? How expensive is the filament? I'm not sure. I got a stash of filament with this. I got this for Christmas. This is my Christmas present. And I don't think it's too bad. Does someone want to kind of look up like what a standard filament price on Amazon is? But yeah. All right, I'm going to do another check on this thing and see how it's going. It is looking absolutely fantastic. I am really pleasantly surprised with how this looks. The print is absolutely beautiful quality. Absolutely beautiful quality. Are they easily breakable? If it's strong enough, then maybe I could take one on an airplane plane. Well, yeah, they are breakable. Yes. If it is not bonded together properly, they can break off at a seam. Hopefully, I've got this where it's set that the seams are going to be pretty good. Has somebody made a 3D printed cornetto? Yes. Like 3D printed or 3D musical instruments.com or something. Surprisingly, the instruments that have been 3D printed the most have all been period instruments, early music. So there's cornettos out there and serpents and recorders. We've not seen a lot of more modern instruments. How big is that in cubic centimeters? I don't know. That is a good question, and it depends on what your infill rate is, Ratchet. I mean, if you fill at 100% versus 20%, your cubic centimeter rate will be very different. But what the standard filament is, it's let me see if I've got a piece of it cut off. Yeah. Okay. So this is a piece of the filament here. This is just the yellow filament. It may be really hard to see on the camera. Oh, okay. But yeah, it's this is 1.75 millimeters. This is the standard size. But yes, period instruments are considerably easier to make. And some of them, like serpents, are particularly difficult to make with traditional technology. The 3D printing technology makes the serpents actually easier to make because of all the bends and crumb horns. Richard's done his crumb horns. I think I'm going to get the files from him on that. I've got a friend who's done Renaissance rackets. Man, would I like to have a racket in my collection. Those are pretty darn cool. But yeah, so one thing that no one has tried yet are 3D printed Dulcians. And I think that a creative person could probably easily do that. Exactly, Alessandro. And to the best of my knowledge, no one has done 3D printed Dulcians. But so yeah, I think a 3D printed Dulcian is probably down the road. I know with the 3D printed Baroque oboe that I'm going to try and do, I will be making the keys out of metal. It'll be my first actual metal keys. But they are very simple. They're in two pieces. They're just sheet brass. So yeah, that'll be a really great way to kind of dip my toe into key making. Dankeschön, mein Herr. You know, with scaling on this, so I said I've transposed this down half a step to try to put it at 415. We'll see how that goes. I don't know how much I can transpose it. I don't think I can take that file and make it a soprano recorder. But if I had a file for a soprano recorder, I might could take that soprano recorder and make it a D recorder, a step higher. What would be called a sextus flute. Or make it a 415 by making it a step lower. But that'd all be kind of fun to do. And who knows? Maybe they'll be interesting. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can find a local place that sells filament, or at least fairly local. Um, but I think that the best bet will probably be ordering on Amazon. I've heard that the Amazon filaments are actually really pretty good. I plan on 3D printing a cone pan flute in a few months, plus some frustrum ones to get different harmonic series on what cylinders can produce. I'm not sure how a conical pan flutes would work. I can't. This could be just a limitation of my visualization, but I don't see how you could put them next to each other. I could see, do, like 5, 6 in a row, but I couldn't see much more than that. Would it be possible to 3D print a piano? Just not the strings on it. No. No. Pianos are have to be done in cast iron or similar material. At least grand pianos are. The sounding board in them, the structure that holds them up, has to be done in that cast metal. There's so much weight being put on those strings. Maybe you could 3D print the body, but not the interstices of it. So yeah, that would be difficult to 3D print a piano. What you could do would be 3D print a harpsichord. It actually would be you could at least 3D print stuff like the jacks and plectrums, and I think I could actually probably build the harpsichord body out of wood, because I've got that kind of woodworking skills. Could you print something crazy like a bassoon or just the body? Well, that's Griffin. That's kind of what I'm going to be doing. It's going to take a lot of time, but the great bassoon that I am designing is going to be 3D printed, and it's going to be a long process on how to do it. But yeah, I am going to be 3D printing the great bassoon that I'm going to be doing. And if you did not catch what that is, it's going to be a large bassoon pitched in G, 1/4 lower than regular. So, but the majority of that will be 3D printed. I've got a friend who's actually volunteered to make the vocal on it, so that will be good. Harpsichord would be a good project for someone with a CNC router. Yeah. Though, honestly, I think I probably have enough woodworking skills that I could probably do a harpsichord if I were to get stuff like the plectrum. If someone were to 3D print a piccolo, they could make a seven-finger system with the additional C and C sharp keys if they want. Well, yes. But again, you do want the keys in metal. But there are piccolos out there being manufactured now with the low C. In fact, the most famous of those is now the Nagahara Mini Piccolo that is actually goes down to low B. So it goes even half step lower. I've heard some flexible filaments like Ninja Flex. Yeah, there are some flexible filaments out there. I don't think I'm going to be using any of them because I don't want anything flexible on this. Yeah. So you saw the stream about the Great Bassoon. Yeah, that should be a fun project. Yeah, Jared, I'll talk to you offline about my friend who's volunteered to do that. He's the mad scientist, and I'm sure he may even be watching tonight. So we'll, but I'll talk to you offline about that. But yeah, all right, let's do a check on what my status is. All right, so I've got about this much of the recorder printed now. It is looking really good. I am really pleased with how that's looking. I want to see something real quick. Interesting. Okay. All right. So yeah, that is coming along really, really well, and I'm sorry you have to look at my backside. Nobody wants to look at that. But yeah. Would you consider 3D printing the mini tenor room? Yes. It's down the road. You know, I'm not particularly happy with the build quality on the Wolf Tenoroods, and mostly that's because they're just they're made to be children's instruments. They're not made to be professional instruments. So I think that you can vastly improve on the quality of those, and that'll be something that I know Richard and I will want to talk about that. But yeah, actually, Richard and I have talked about doing like a bassoon d'amore in A and a baritone in D, one step above the regular bassoon. So you have as many bassoons as you have clarinets, which I think would be really fun. And if you could 3D print them all, would I 3D print myself? No, nobody wants that. I'm assuming you couldn't print the keys of marimba. Correct. You've got to have a right vibrating material. Would spray painting 3D printed plastics be a good idea? Like, for example, with metal. Depends on what's in the paint. I wouldn't use spray paint, honestly. Could you 3D print just a set of slides for brass instruments to put it in a different key? I theoretically, yes, but I don't think so. I don't think it would be a good idea. You can't... I don't think you are going to be able to 3D print something with that thin of walls that it's also going to be structurally stable. And that's one of the things where, with brass instruments, it becomes very difficult, is that the walls are not thick enough. Are there metal fill materials? Perhaps in some of big industrial 3D printing jobs, but not for the commercial stuff. As far as I know, it's all some form of plastic. if you were to do it with metal, you would have to have it be 3D printing at the melting point of whatever metal that is. Now there are some metals that do have that super low melting point, lead or there's a few others, but those are not going to be metals that you are going to want to actually build something out of. You're going to want something more like aluminum or nickel silver or steel, and the melting points of those are just so incredibly high that I don't know of a way you could do that in an in-home printer. But yeah, let's see. So yeah, as I get more and more accustomed to this, I'll be designing more and more instruments, and I would actually love to eventually, have a whole enterprise where producing these strange and sundry instruments that nerds like us want. 3D print a gallium instrument that melts when you play it, yeah, or 3D print a what is that metal that explodes in water? Potassium. Thoughts on the Sio saxophone mouthpieces? I've never played on one. I cannot give you any kind of feedback. I've heard they are good, but I've never played one, so I can't. I'm not going to give feedback on it. I'd love to try out 3D printing a mouthpiece, and I will probably do that at some point. But we'll see. Who knows? Maybe I could actually get a 3D print a good. Yeah, cesium I think is the one that really does it. Maybe I can get a good bari sax mouthpiece that will actually play in tune on my bari sax. All right, let's see. Yeah, anybody have any other suggestions of things to try 3D printing? I've got the stuff to do the Serpent. That will be coming up. I'll be doing a run of these recorders. If the recorder turns out really well and plays well, I'll probably be selling the recorders. That will be in G and in Baroque pitch. Well, I mean, when you're talking material stuff, yeah, you do have to talk about chemistry and physics. I saw a glass trombone a few years. Was that done traditionally? It was probably done with blown glass. That would be the only way I would know to do it. But functionality, I'm sure it was a test of the glassblower's skills, but 3D print a lamp or something. I might. I will definitely have to be 3D printing my girlfriend's stuff. I am sure a Porg or two will be on there, as well as a baby Yoda for her. Yes, okay, Jared, yes, the low A bell. Yes, I do want to 3D print a full low A bell. And that's one thing that I do want to do. Undercut the tone holes. Yeah, that may be one of those you just want to do it with the traditional undercutting technique. Richard's low A's are just extensions. Jared, an actual keyed bell. So replace the whole bell with a 3D printed bell. That is something that I do plan on trying to do. I'd also like to experiment with a a Liebesfuss on the bassoon. So Liebesfuss, if you don't know, is the name for the bulb bell on an English horn. Right. So yeah, the goal would be to 3D print a whole bell with the B flat and the A on it. The problem with that is you'd have to resize that for every bassoon. So you'd have to redesign it for every model of bassoon out there, and that would be just a pain in the butt. So I'll design it for my personal bassoon, and it might be one of those that if people want it, they'd bring me the bassoon, I'd take measurements, and then redesign and print as needed, and then charge. I don't know. That might be something that you charge like $500 for. But yeah, full 3D printed low A bell. What about a bulb bell for a regular oboe? I don't see why not. It would be interesting. That would be something really interesting to see if the bulb bell actually makes any difference at all. My guess is it probably doesn't. I think 75% of the tone is in the first third of the instrument. Could you print mutes? Absolutely, you can print mutes. One of the things I will be doing is I want to print a baritone sax mute, and I found somebody who had a file for just a regular alto sax mute, and I'll just size it up to bari sax size. Yeah, harmony or straight mute's super easy to do. You can find those files. Printing recorder was making the fipple. I could not get it to speak clearly no matter how many adjustments from away because the wind wave was too rough. Yeah, and I will end up having to do a lot of woodworking and sanding on it. So I'll take care of all that. I can do. I figure if I can adjust a bassoon reed, I can probably adjust a recorder fipple. Okay. Let's see. I remember Jared telling me about my single reed instrument project about 2 months ago that I've 3D printed. Is that with the reverse conical bore on the single reed? I think I vaguely remember it. Oh, yeah. Where you tried to suppress the harmonics or amplify the harmonics or something along those lines, yeah. And well, you can make those felt line cut mutes fine. The Robinson mutes, well, I mean, all you got to do is take a regular cut mute and just put felt inside of it. That's simple enough. Something else that I do have the file for it is the alto clarinet extension that I want to do. So yeah, now that I've got this, I will hopefully maybe within a couple weeks I will have an alto clarinet extension down to low C. Fingers crossed. And I can do that, and I'll probably share the file with Jared, and he can print one, and we'll see how that goes. I've got a spare bass clarinet for parts, so I can make the keys on it. I don't think clarinets can have double reeds. They need a vocal. Could you make a double reed mouth? No, I don't think you could. Well, okay, well, what you're looking at, Aster, is essentially a duduk. A duduk is kind of like a double reed clarinet. It doesn't mean you have to ruin a perfectly good cut. Well, you don't have to ruin it by putting felt or foam in it. I mean, you just stuff it up there. I made a low D alto extension. Okay, yeah. Now, that's just one note, but I wanted to go all the way down to C. So I think I'll be able to do that, and I've got all the dimensions to do that. And, and then if that goes well, I'll do a bass clarinet extension, and hopefully soon a great bass clarinet extension. And the great bass clarinet extension I want to actually come back up, so I'll need to print a U-bend. But I don't... modeling that will be difficult, but I'll need to figure out how to do that exactly. But I think I can do that. But anyway, yeah, this is fun. Oh, I know what's making that sound. Okay, we're good. But anyway, anybody else have any questions? We'll try and do the. Try and do the guitar stream next week. You know, with holidays and whatnot, but I just couldn't get the schedule working with Michael. But anyway, I think we're gonna wrap it for tonight. That's an hour of sitting here watching a machine work, and so yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna let the 3D printer run its course, and we'll talk to you guys later.